All right, everybody. It looks like 2 p.m. Eastern Standard, so we're going to go ahead and get started here. Well, thanks for coming to our webinar. This is going to go over version 110, which we released just the other day here. My name is Nori. I'm a senior implementation specialist here at Smart Service. I'm joined by Jess Spalding, another senior implementation specialist. I'll be doing the presenting. Jess will be taking some questions as we go along. But let's go ahead and take a look at what we got here today. So if this is your first time to one of these webinars, we do these once a month. It's always the first Thursday of the month, barring holidays. But you can sign up for them for free. You can do that at smartservice.com/webinar. You can also view the previous webinars there. If you find some interesting stuff in this video here and you want to share that with somebody else later on, you can visit that page tomorrow. Usually within 24 hours of the live broadcast, we have the recording available for you. And it'll be there indefinitely. So feel free to share it or come back and take a look at it if you missed something. With that being said, we do take questions during these live webinars. That's why we do them. We want you guys to ask questions, whatever comes to mind on the topic of these features that we're going to be discussing here. On your screen, you should see a little chat panel, and there's a questions area in that where you guys can type in questions. We'll answer some of those live over the air, and Jess will be helping me run through those as well. So definitely ask your questions. We want questions. We set the time aside for you guys, so definitely make the best use of it. Lastly, these webinars are also things that are suggested by you, well, barring these enhancement ones, because those are, the new version. But the other months, those are all things that you guys suggest to us, topics that you want us to cover. I've got a good idea of what the topic for next month will be because some customers have already requested that one. But when you leave this webinar, you'll be asked to take a survey to let us know how we did. And also you'll be asked to suggest a topic so we know what you guys want us to cover in the future. But moving right along here, we're going to take a look at some of the new features in version 110 of Smart Service. The first thing we're going to look at is the spell check feature. This is something that's been asked for many times, and we're happy to present this for you here. The spell check feature, I did want to note, and this is a note for anybody that updates to this version. If you're using a full version of Microsoft Access, then this pretty much just happens automatically. We're using parts of that. If you don't have the full version of Access, when you download 110, we'll download this necessary component to make the spell check work. If you have any issues, of course, with the spell check or getting it to work, definitely let us know, and we'll check if you have that full version of Access and if any settings are needing to be changed. But we'll go ahead and talk about the spell check function, see that in action. I also want to talk about collecting payments on service agreements. For those of you who have our merchant service card point and have our service agreement module, that's who that feature is going to be directed at there. That's just a way for us to take payments just like we do usually through Smart Service nowadays, but also from that service agreement module. And then there are various other quality of life enhancements that we'll be running through today. Version 110, barring these other two things, are really more filled with things that are trying to make your life easier. So we've added some things that you guys have asked for, little things here and there, to kind of sum them up into a big update of more convenience style things. But with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. All right, and we should now be able to see my Smart Service. So like I said there, the first thing that we want to talk about is going to be that spell check feature. A common thing that I've been asked a couple times about this feature already that I wanted to make clear for everybody. This spell check feature, when I'm talking about this is talking about Smart Service here in the office. Your iFleet devices, Android and iOS, those devices have a spell check built into their keyboard. So you can turn that on if you want that for the field. It's probably on by default unless you guys purposely disable it. But that's going to be autocorrect and all that stuff. So those guys should already be covered. But up until now, we didn't have a spell check built into Smart Service itself. So that's what we're going to take a look at. We can go ahead and open up one of these services. And primarily, we're going to be looking at these instructions and additional context fields. When you have one of these text fields and you have something in here, whether you wrote it or whether the guys in the field wrote it and it's coming back to you here, you're going to be able to come in here, right click, and you'll see you have a new option here for spell check. So if you're not in version 110, you're not going to see this option here, but you'll want to go ahead and click on spell check. And that's going to run this little spell check box for you. It's going to look through, see anything that needs to be changed. Of course, it works like a standard spell check. You can ignore it. You can change it to what it's recommending. Or if it's some industry term that you guys, commonly use, you probably want to go ahead and hit add. But we can see that we've misspelled the word misspelled. So we'll go ahead and fix that. We'll hit change. and then it'll let me know, hey, spell check is complete. Another note on this feature, when you guys come in here and you try to do the spell check, if nothing is misspelled, it'll still give that same message. So you can confirm that everything looks good here. But that is how the spell check function is going to work here. And this works in these note fields. So primarily, your scope of work notes and all that stuff. I did want to answer a question for Kelly. Yes, Kelly, the spell check that we're talking about here is used in the office. But like I said, just like on your personal phone, you already have a spell check built into that. So that has always existed for those. This here is going to be talking about smart service. So your keyboard spell check on your mobile device or tablet, that's separate. Smart service back in the office did not have that same ability, and we've added some of that stuff in here for you. Cindy also asked a good question that I want to go ahead and address, and that's how do we know we have the latest version of smart service? Well, we do release these updates quarterly. We do try to send you emails to, make sure you guys are aware of these updates. And that's something, of course, you guys can sign up for if you want to send an email to the desk to let us know to email you whenever these things come out. But to check what version you have here, if you go up here to help, you got this about section. So we can click on that. And in here, we can see all our details. You want to look for this first line here. So it says what version you're running. You want to cross-reference that basically with our online manual, smartservice.com/knowledge base, where we'll always show that. But here you can see what version you're on. With that being said, if one of you updates, let's say there's 5 or 6 of you in the office there, one of you updates to version 110, make sure that you let everybody know that so they can update to version 110. You don't want to be running multiple different versions in the office. When you do that, if you try to access a feature that they don't have because they're in an older version, they might encounter an error, and that might cause some frustrations for them. They probably won't know why because they haven't seen that somebody's updated. So make sure to update everybody. But on each individual workstation, again, that's going up to help and about. You can see that version there.
And we did have one from Don that might be a good one here, Nori, to show him the address certifications.
Yep, yeah, that's one I was just thinking about there.
Gotcha. Okay.
Cool. All right, Jess, you keep taking a look through those here. I'll go ahead and show that picture off here. So Don and it was Don asked twice there. Yeah. Oh no, another person asked. Okay. Couple things on this. When you guys are putting in these addresses, if you feel like you might have misspelled something, so let me go ahead and mess up this address a little bit here. We'll put in a different address here. Okay. So I have misspelled our office address. Whenever you do this, you can come up here and you can hit this check mark here. That will certify your address against the USPS. Now that part is important. This is USPS address certification. This does not work for our customers in Canada, unfortunately. But for those of you in the United States, click on this little check mark here. That will run your address through their certification tool. This will correct spelling, capitalization, and give you a 9-digit zip code. So you can see the change over here to the certified address. We misspelled Cotter. I didn't even include a zip code. As long as you have the street name kind of close and you got the city name right, this should work. It'll check through that stuff, figure out that. So that is what I would consider our spell check for the address thing. Once you click save on that as well, it'll turn that little check mark green so that you know this address has been certified.
And there were a couple of other pretty good ones here as well. In terms of the spell check, the way that it works, so you do have to right click. So we had a couple of people ask about that. Is it something that you actually have to right click for? That is something that you have to do in here right now. That is the case. It's something that we're going to be looking into a little bit further. I'll bring that up with the developers in our meeting for that. And then we also had a question regarding item descriptions as well. So it does work on the item descriptions as well. That one was for Mike there.
Yes.
So we're good.
And again, folks, you can come in here to these text fields, right click that, hit spell check.
Yep.
So you want to do that after the text has been entered in there. Make sure to just right click it and that'll check the spelling for whatever is already available in that box. All right, let me take a look here and clear off some of these things that we got. Nathan asked if you need to right click on each text box individually. Yes, when you are doing like that, this spell check here, this will run for this text box, which is different from if you come down here and run it down here. So that's a good question there. Let me see here. So let's go ahead and move on. Yeah, we got that one answered. All right. So next couple items here on our list. I did want to go over that service agreement HPP link that we do send out. A couple things with that here, folks. So when I'm talking about the service agreement module, first off, what I'm referencing here, if we close out of this service, if we go back to our Office tab where we have our service agreement section, the service agreement section that shows up here is part of that service agreement module. If you can access this, and the screen would look familiar to you, this is to manage contracts and stuff like that. The features that I'm going to be discussing here next are also already available on your work orders and stuff like that to collect payment over the internet. But we've added that in here for the smart service agreements. With that being said, this feature is available to those of you who have set up the hosted payment page or HPP with our CardPoint merchant service. So there are two elective things that you need to have here to make this function work. But what this does for you, if we head back over to the setup for it, which I'll get to by going to settings, setup smart service add-ons, and we head over to this email service agreement invoice, this new option here. So first off, you got this check mark, which is the important part. Email service agreement invoice after posting, and I have one of those for us to take a look at. This is what will send the customer a copy of that service agreement invoice and also include that link to the hosted payment page, which you have set up in Smart Service. If you don't have that set up or you're interested in our merchant service, let us know. Just send us an email. But in this section here, you can set up what you want the service agreement to be, the email to say. So I have mine, usually I build monthly contracts for my company. So it just says, hey, here's your monthly statement. And then I made a little message there that the customer would receive whenever they get this email. And again, this works just like anything else in this section, like the email job reminders and all that. You write out whatever you want. I wrote hello, and then I right-clicked, and it gives me a list of options of things I can add in. I chose that first name field. What that does for you, if you haven't seen this before, is whenever the customer gets this email, it's not going to show up hello first name like this. This first name field code that we got by right-clicking, this is going to make it so that we grab the customer's first name from their customer record and put that on the email for them. So they would get the email that says, hello, Jenny, hello, Bob, whatever their name is that we have written down in Smart Service. So you design your template here. With that being said, there are some new fields for those of you who are already used this before. When you come in here, you got a lot of different things. We're calling these contract fields for the service agreement. So these are all the fields from the agreements themselves. So they'll be heading under that contract field section there. But you design this all out. Once you get this done, whenever you guys go into Office service agreements, you do your filters, but you go down here and you click on post buttons, to post these over to QuickBooks. Whenever you're doing that, if the customer itself has an email on it, and if we have, the first name and all that stuff on it, whenever you hit this post button, it's also going to email them over an email with our message and a document that looks similar to this here. So this is the one that I made that I sent to myself right before the webinar here. It's a basic template, and templates are customizable, but in here we have this make a payment button. Clicking on this would take me over to my hosted payment page where the customer could pay online. So they would receive this in their email, they'd see this button, they click on that, it takes them over to that website, it lets them make a payment online, and of course that payment comes back to you and back to QuickBooks. So this is a good option here to get that hosted payment page out to your customers if you're also using our contract module. We'll go ahead and close that. And we're going to get into the quality of life features here that we have. So let me go ahead and head over to some of those. The first of which is going to happen on our scheduling board. So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with our waiting list feature. Down here at the bottom of my screen, we can see this waiting list. If you've never used this before, it's going to be closed like this. So it'll just save you waiting list. This is where you guys can store jobs, things that, we can't do yet, but we still need on here for some reason. We're waiting on parts, we're waiting to get approval for this, waiting for the next step in this project, whatever it is. Those jobs get placed on the waiting list. And while this waiting list has existed for a while, as has the next part of this feature here, which is our columns button over here on the right, lets you customize columns that are on the waiting list. We have added in some new options for this. We've added in the job amount field. So that's included there. That's the amount of the job before tax. And we've also added in the job exception field. So this is something that's been requested a lot here. We've got that on here now. To add something in from this, the available columns are what you can add to this waiting list at the bottom. The selected columns are what you have in that waiting list at the bottom. So you can see that kind of follows that same pattern there. To move something over, let's go ahead and move job amount over. I'll select it on the left, and I'll hit the little arrow to move it to the right. And if I didn't want one of these columns, of course, I could hit the arrow to move it back and put it away. But we got job amount over here. Now we can hit our up arrow to move that up in our information. We can organize how this should look, and we'll go ahead and save that. So now I have job amount in here as well as job exception. So these two new fields have been added. The thing that excites me the most about this change to the waiting list here, and I'm sure this will be something that everybody's going to be happy with. The waiting list has these different columns on them, right? And sometimes these will have a lot of information, sometimes it won't have a lot of data in it. We have made it so that when you adjust these columns, so if I cut down this job description a little bit, it will preserve that for you. In previous versions of Smart Service, if you had closed the program after making that adjustment, it would pop back up with the normal standard length that we've given it. It does now remember that column with preference in here. So that's something that's good. That happens, of course, for all of these columns. You know, something needs to be a little bit shorter so we can make room for other things. Maybe I want to make this one small, make this one kind of big. Maybe there's a lot of data in there usually. It would make a nice way to do that. That'll take care of it for our waiting list here. The next thing I wanted to go over is another thing that's been pretty highly requested. We're going to go back to a job record. It has to do with this email field. So let me give you some context for this email field and what it should be used for. Whenever you create a customer, or you're creating a work order, whatever you're creating, this email here, this is your primary contacts email. Usually that's going to be the person that is paying for service. If you're doing mostly residential stuff, this field probably doesn't matter as much to have multiple things in it. But if you're doing any commercial work, you probably have multiple emails that you need to notify when work is done, that you need to notify when an invoice is sent, and we've added that ability in here. So now, as of version 110, if you got, let's say, this email in here, but I need another email that's also should be like their primary email contact, you have the option of either doing a comma or a semicolon. So again, that's a comma or a semicolon, and putting in another email here. By putting in another email here, as long as it's separated by that comma or semicolon, this will act like a CC email, just like it would in like Google or any other email app that you have. So when you go to send something out now, it will send it to both of those emails that you have on file. So that one's pretty exciting for, like I said, people doing commercial work that need to notify multiple people with a work order or whatever you have in there. As long as you keep separating them by commas, you're good to go. Somebody asked here, it's Maggie asked, how many emails can you put in that line? Maggie, I will double check on that for you. I would imagine, though, we're still on the field length of about 250 characters. So as long as it comes in.
Yeah, I'm actually double checking that for you right now. So
yeah, great, thank you.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure it's going to be your 255 maybe is the standard field length. So it would probably be as long as you can fit them in that amount of characters, you should be good. Separating them with commas or semicolons there.
Yeah, I'll follow up once I find that for you guys.
Awesome.
The question from Amy looks like it's a pretty good one there.
All right, let me take a look.
So do email separations only work for the job, or if you add it at the customer tab, will it trickle down into the job records?
Yeah, so Amy, yes, they do. If you add it to the customer level, of course, that's going to trickle down to the jobs. Just like how I got that support at My Service Depot email in there. That was from that customer. So putting in 2 emails on the customer would mean that those 2 emails would default down to the job level. So we got that. All right. Let's see here. We got a couple of things coming in about emails. Glad to see you guys are engaged with this. Definitely keep these questions coming. Does this email feel direct where the iFleet invoices are sent? From Chris. Yes, Chris. Whenever you go to send an email through iFleet, it's going to be looking at the emails that are in this primary email box here. So make sure that is the person that you want to get that work order or invoice email. I have seen people that whenever you go to, let's say you have 2 emails in here, and maybe you only use one of them some of the time. We will present both of these emails for you, but whenever you go to email something from iFleet, it just opens up the email app. So if you want to remove one once it's in the email app, that's not going to affect Smart Service. That we could send it to just one of those 2 people. That would be fine. So if you want to come up with a system of primary and secondary email, or service and billing email always in the same position here, that would be fine as well. And then let's see here. Nathan asked a good question that links to a couple other things that would be good to talk about here. And that is, what if the customer doesn't want to provide an email? Well, Nathan, if they don't want to provide an email, I guess they're not going to get their work orders emailed to them. You can print them out, though, of course, once they come back to the office and mail it to them, or whatever their preference would be. What I would do for best practice, and the reason why I want to get this question answered, if you don't have an email for somebody, you can just leave this field blank unless you made it a required field. Some of you may have this field show up in yellow, meaning it is required, meaning you have to put in something. You can just write in no@email.com in that case. That way you're always asking. It's a good way to make sure somebody did ask the customer. If it's blank, we can probably assume they didn't ask at all. But if it has either email or no@email.com, we know at least we checked for that. That's going to be more important when you're doing things like marketing, when you're just trying to have better customer relations by keeping them up to date, by sending them copies of their stuff, which is a great idea. At least you can see it this way. So let's go ahead and move on here to our next feature. The next thing I wanted to talk about is actually going to be some new fields in reporting. So let's go ahead and head over there. Close out of this, close out the service agreement tab. We'll go over to our reporting section. Now, we do have several webinars that cover just reporting alone. This is a large topic in Smart Service. It's a very valuable topic. Once you get the basics of this program down, everybody in the office should know how to make a basic report and how to export that report to Excel for further modifications. It's a good thing to learn about. Like I said, smartservice.com/webinar, plenty of information about this. I'm going to go ahead and walk through this section here as if you guys do know a little bit about reports, because I do want to cover these big changes here that we've made. So the first change here we'll go ahead and start with is going to be kind of a little one on job reports and other reports dealing with jobs. If we go in here, we have added this new iFleet notes field. For those of you who are using iFleet, who are familiar with iFleet, you have this iFleet notes field in there, the private notes that come from iFleet. Those private notes, I'll go ahead and show you where these come from. On any service, if you use an iFleet in your notes tab, you have this iFleet notes private down here. These are notes that the customer won't be able to see. They're hidden in a little box in iFleet, so it's just private communication between you and your field techs about this customer, about this service. Since we've added that field, we've had a couple people ask to make that field reportable. And that is the news of today here, is under these reports, we now have that iFleet notes field that'll pull those iFleet notes that you might have on there. So again, you won't always have something in iFleet notes. It's not used every single job probably, but it is something that's available to now be reported on, so you can see when it was used. The other big update here comes with our equipment reports. So I'll go ahead and head over to the equipment report section. And that is that we've added the equipment type and the equipment group as reportable fields here. We came up with these equipment type and group fields not too long ago. The idea there was to provide you guys better control over what types of equipment you're servicing, so you can run reports on that, so you can see that information, make forms a lot easier, and also grouping like equipment together, different components of a system that work together in the same group in that customer. Since you guys like those features so much, we've also got them in here for reporting. Again, that is on your equipment type reports. You'll have the option to have that equipment type and equipment group fields. But that's pretty much everything that we had here for the 110 update. So like I said, a lot of quality of life enhancements, a couple big things there at the beginning with the spell check and the service agreement hosted payment page. I am going to go ahead and bring you guys back over to the webinar slides here so we can finish up here for today. If you have other questions, though, Definitely keep them coming. Remember, when you leave this webinar here, you guys will be asked to take a survey. Let us know how we did. More importantly, though, let us know what you want us to cover in the next video. But let me go ahead and bring you back over here. There we go. So again, you can watch this and any of the Smart Service webinars here at smartservice.com/webinar. This broadcast should be available about 24 hours from now. So sometime tomorrow, we should have a copy of it uploaded to that same site. You can share it with people that missed it. If you had to step away for a moment, that's totally fine. We have this all recorded for you. Furthermore, you can visit smartservice.com/updates. You can grab a copy from the update there. You can watch a summary video that I produced there that goes over these features in a more compact sense. So definitely check that out. This and all future updates are shown there. So if you want to see what happened in version 109, what happened in 108, and kind of see the progression of things, or pick up on, if you're upgrading from 105 today, there's a lot of stuff you've missed between now and then. You can check up on those videos to get a brief introduction to what those new features were and a quick demo of them. Lastly here, you got smartservice.com/knowledge base. This is your online manual for Smart Service. We have all of the products features listed out there and videos and other things like that. You can also sign up for those weekly webinars there as well, which are working different from these webinars. But you can sign up for those. You can watch our videos. You can read our articles. We got a lot of good stuff over there. And also you can grab a copy of that update. Lastly, for personalized training, we do recommend 2 hours every 2 years to stay up to date on the latest and greatest features. We put out a couple brand new versions every year. So, that stuff adds up over time. If you haven't been in training for a little bit, there's probably a better way to do something that you're doing in the office, something more efficient, something that we've put in there for you to make life easier. It's good to get that personalized training. Take a look at your process again, see what we have done better for you, and make sure we can actually utilize that feature for your business. But feel free to reach out to our implementation team at 888-518-0818, and we'll talk to you then. Thanks for coming, guys, and we'll see you in the next webinar.
Yep, have a good one.